The first thing that the firm can do in the long run that they can't do in the short run is to find the best way of combining capital and labor to produce output. We've been talking about the technological possibilities of the firm. That is, the ways in which a firm is able to combine capital and labor to produce a given quantity of television sets. Now we're going to consider which combination of capital and labor is in fact the best combination for the firm in the long run. And best means cost minimizing. In order to maximize its profits, the firm needs to minimize the cost of producing whatever level of output it chooses. In this section, we're going to be looking at how a firm minimizes its costs of production. Let's look first at a way of representing the costs of production in a firm. A firm is going to be combining capital and labor to produce output, and it's going to be looking for a way of combining these inputs to produce a given quantity of output at minimum cost. Let's begin by representing the costs of production for a firm. I'll start with an equation. All of this will be reproduced over on the board for you to use throughout this lecture, but I want to do it carefully at first so that the math makes sense. We'll use the expression TC to stand for total cost. And the total cost of production for the firm will be equal to the wage it pays its workers times the number of workers that it hires, plus the price it pays to rent a unit of capital times the number of units of capital that the firm actually rents. So the labor cost plus the capital cost is equal to the total cost. Here we're assuming that the firm has only two inputs, labor and capital. If it has other inputs, you would just simply add those on in this equation. Now, you've seen the graph that we're going to be using to graph the firm's costs. In order to draw a line that represents the firm's costs in that graph, and since capital is on the vertical axis, we need to isolate capital on one side of the equation. That is, we're finding the intercept slope formula for writing a straight line, and that straight line is going to be the total cost. So what I'll do first is I'll move everything to the other side of the equal sign except for the capital term. So let's do that. I'm going to have now total cost minus labor cost is equal to the cost of capital. And now let's divide both sides through by the price you pay for a unit of capital. And that gives us total cost divided by the price of capital minus the wage divided by the price of capital times labor is equal to K. Now, we're used to writing the vertical intercept variable over on the left-hand side of the equation, so let me just switch these two expressions, and we get K is equal to the total cost divided by the price of capital minus the wage divided by the price of capital times the amount of labor that the firm hires. This, again, is just another way of writing the total cost of production for the firm, only now we've isolated that in terms of capital. We've got here the firm's budget expressed as the amount of capital and labor that the firm chooses to hire. Notice that any values of capital and labor that we plug into this formula have to satisfy this equation. And that equation means that every combination of capital and labor that satisfies this equation will have the same total cost. Now I can represent this equation with a line in the diagram.
Nine bites.